This episode has been brought to you in part by the Azrieli Music Prizes, celebrating 10 years of promoting excellence in music composition. Come experience the musical imaginations of AMP's 4 extraordinary 2024 laureates. The Orchestre Symphonique de Montréal Chorus and Maestro Andrew McGill give the world premiere of their prize-winning works for the AMP Gala concert on October 28th at Maison Symphonique in Montreal. Learn more at azrielifoundation.org/AMP.
This is Bonjour Chai, the Live, Laugh, Liberate edition. I'm Avi Feingold, and I'm here with Phoebe Maltz-Bovey. We are your Frozen Chosen. On today's show, what happens when the Toronto District School Board sends students to an Indigenous rally that devolves into pro-Palestinian chants? We also get into boycotts of indigo, boycotts of indigo, are they even useful? And Ta-Nehisi Coates has a new book. We get into the ideas that are in there and whether he is a public intellectual worthy of discussion, even to this date. All this and more coming right up. Last night, there was a meeting of the Toronto District School Board, henceforth being said as the TDSB, about a kerfuffle that happened a little over a week ago. Do you know anything about this?
I know a little bit about it, but Avi, why don't you explain in more detail?
So these are the facts as far as I'm able to glean them. Please tell me if I'm right or wrong, and then we can jump into this. So on September 18th, there was a protest in support of the Grassy Narrows First Nation. This apparently has happened for several years already. This is a community, a First Nations community that has been affected by mercury poisoning in their water. That's fact A. There were 15 schools that attended this rally as a field trip, meaning teachers who went and said this is important for the kids to observe as part of their quote unquote current educational goals that they were learning about, and 15 schools sent grades to this protest. The protest itself turned into a march that went all the way down to Queen's Park. Some schools did participate in that march and some schools did not. The other facts that I know is that permission forms that were sent to the parents for this field trip indicated that the students would only observe this rally, this protest, whatever we're going to call it, and not necessarily participate. Nevertheless, even for the ones that were only observing and not participating, what they observed is that the protest turned from that into a pro-Palestine protest rally, whatever we're going to call it. There were banners that said, "We won't stop until Palestine is free. From Wabigoon River to the Dead Sea, we will all be free." This enraged parents, and it led to an internal TDSB investigation, which, as of this meeting last night, was said that the TDSB is going to stop their investigation because the Ontario Ministry of Education is going to have their own full investigation into this. Is this correct as far as I can gather?
Yes, so that is correct in terms of the outline of things. So what I actually wrote about in my column this week was the great number of unknowns and the great number of kind of gossip, rumor, partial truth, or you know, sort of there's been a lot of buzz about this happening, and the sort of the story that people are telling has been Jewish children forced to be humiliated at pro-Palestine march that, you know, wishes the death of Jewish children like themselves, and can you believe this is happening in Canada? Canada is going down the toilet. Everybody should homeschool their children, blah, blah, blah. This is what you see kind of where things spiral on social media and to some extent just in media. It depends where in media. What seems to have happened, okay, so a lot of the confusion seems to stem from something to which I do not have the actual answer, which is that a Jewish girl was asked by her teacher to wear a blue shirt indicating that she was a settler. Now, you hear that and you think, what? You know, it sounds as if like a yellow star type situation. Sounds terrible. You step back a little and it turns out that children in this class and people at this march generally were being asked to wear blue shirts. Now, by some telling, it was settlers are being asked to wear a blue shirt. it's confusing wording in the things I've read, but it seems as if you're indigenous, you can wear your regalia. If you're a settler, you can wear a blue shirt. I don't know if you're indigenous if you can't wear a blue shirt. What I've seen elsewhere is that the blue shirt indicates it's like meant to represent water, like for clean water.
Yeah. So from what I understand, the blue was for the water, and it wasn't just settlers. It was indigenous people were also wearing blue. But to me, the confusion that the parents might maybe rightfully or wrongfully, I'm not going to get into is the idea that the word settler in this case means anybody who's not part of the First Nations. Right, because everybody is a settler, and
right,
then
so
that is an easy leap to say, well, I'm Jewish. Are you saying that I'm a settler in Israel, and that's part of it, and that because we're talking about Palestine, that there's settler issues going on there?
Yes. So okay. So this is I'm very glad you bring this up, and this actually foreshadows what we're talking about in a later segment, which is context collapse and the flattening of all topics into
the omnicause.
The omnicause, because if you are not Canadian, and I went on another podcast earlier in the week, Davka Smola, a socialist Zionist podcast. We were talking on it. The other podcasters are American, and I was trying to explain to them about how settler is used in Canada, because to American ears, settler sounds like you're talking about the West Bank. To Canadian ears, settler sounds like you're talking about somebody who isn't indigenous. As we have talked about, I think when we had David Weinfeld on, like pre-October 7th, we talked about this Jew as settler. I have qualms about the use of settler to refer to, for example, a Syrian refugee. It seems a little bit ridiculous to me to call such a person a settler in Canada. This is, however, give or take how the language works, how it is done. Whether it should be done that way or not is something else. But it doesn't strike me as inherently anti-Semitic to say settler about somebody Jewish in Canada, simply because I have this broader context where I see that this is just the language, the way it's used in Canada.
You may disagree with it, but it's not anti-Semitic is what you're saying.
Exactly. Whereas if somebody says you settler to somebody in the States, yes, not same, but a similar history in terms of indigenous populations. This term settler for non-indigenous people in the United States, outside of like an academic activist type circle, you would not see.
What's interesting about this is I was listening to our sister podcast, the CJN Daily, a few days ago when it came out about this rally, and my kids were in the car and they're like, who brings kids to like a political rally? We don't do that. And my kids, I mean, they are in a private school, but there's this sense that like, that's not what you do. And I'm curious.
What about the walk for Israel?
So, yeah. So I'm not sure if, there
are plenty of kids at that.
Yeah. So it's clearly not true because, like I said, you guys don't go to the Israel rally. There's like, oh, the high school kids do. And I was like, okay, sure. But I think in New York, for example, at the big the Israel Day parade, there's a lot of schools.
I know.
I'm not denying that. No,
I know full well. Yes.
I guess I'm not saying that she is right, and I'm not saying that whatever. But I'm just trying to figure out and parse what's the nature of sending kids to or doing things political with kids. And yes. I'd like to parse that a little bit more because I'm a little iffy on that one.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. So I think we have to separate this out into two different things. One is, should kids go to political rallies? A question I have my own opinions on that are not really as interesting as whether a school, specifically a public school, should be bringing children to a political rally. And that is, I think, where this gets interesting and where whatever actually took place here, I think the anxieties, like, I don't know how to put this. I think that the parents, the very concerned parents in this instance are kind of, I don't want to say reacting to nothing. And I think an investigation will take place and maybe it turns out they were reacting to something, but very possibly reacting to nothing. But that their concerns are valid and that I understand why they're concerned, because the public schools take a stand on different contentious issues, and they already do this. So the examples I gave in my column would be like, there's a pride flag in front of public schools in Toronto, and not only public schools, but in front of public schools. If you are politically opposed to this, you either are objecting to it in some capacity or not sending your kid to public school. There is a certain stance regarding colonialism and in Canada regarding not just mistreatment of Indigenous people past and present, but like just colonialism in general that is taught in public school. And a hyper-conservative person would probably not like that if they're, I don't think you get a lot of people that far right who would. But what I'm saying is that public schools will take a stance. And it would not surprise me if it does come up in the coming months, the coming year or so, that public schools are including in their curriculum, in the social justice component of their curriculum, Palestine and, all these tragedies happening in our world. We need to care. Caring people would care. We are informing our children about the world around them. Here is a cause that everybody cares about. And the reason I say this is because I think public schools do this to some extent when there seems to be a community consensus about it. And I hate to bring everything back to the ubiquitous signs in my neighborhood, which I realize are somewhat specific to one neighborhood. But if it starts to seem that there's a consensus in Canada that one should be putting up Free Palestine along with the pride flag, it's not so far-fetched to imagine that the same curriculum that has the pride flag, and I'm happy my kid's school has a pride flag. I'm not saying this, I don't think these things are actually connected, but I'm saying I don't think it's so far-fetched to see not necessarily the hanging of a Palestinian flag at every public school in Canada, but yes, a particular stance on this incorporated into the public school. So I think the anxieties are valid. I think that in this particular case, maybe not.
So here's where I want to go with this. I can think of starting let me start my thoughts around my own kids' schools, which are private Jewish schools. I think it's a safe assumption when you send your kids to a private Jewish school that you are going to be in support of an Israel Day parade, for example. So it's a safe bet to say, hey, let's send all the kids there because you've opted into this school and you've opted into a certain set of values, whatever those values might be, whatever the private school might be. And so I'm separating private school from public school because in this case, like I said, but I would have a problem, and I do, and I've voiced concerns when the private schools do get involved politically sometimes with something that might be politically contentious, right? When there is no clear consensus on what Jews believe in around this, then let's leave that aside. Don't write your congressperson or your member of parliament letters from the school for something that the school or the teacher thinks is important, but many parents do not think about that. Public school, as you're pointing out, is designed in theory for everybody to feel comfortable, no matter what you believe about a pride flag or no matter what you believe about Palestine. And even if there's an aspirational set of values that the teacher is trying to put in and say, yes, of course, all right-thinking people think this, you are going to make somebody feel uncomfortable, even if they are absolutely wrong, right? Even if you are raging homophobe and you send your kid to public school, that kid has a right to an education, and you can't go and deny that kid an education because their parent says, you are putting up a pride flag, that's disgusting, and therefore I am going to, pull my kid from school. They are going to get an education, they're going to get homeschooled, whatever, we're going to get into that. And that's where I think what you're pointing out is really important, is to say, stop being aspirationally values driven and start looking at what actually is going on in facts on the ground and say, I know teachers think that this is the cause and the most just thing possible, but you got to rein that in a little bit and get into.
Well, I don't know. To be honest, this has not come up at our school. I don't have any idea what the teachers at my kids' school think about Palestine. This may not, given the age of my children, one of them is too young for school yet. This is not something that has come up. I would not want a field trip to a political rally. I think it's hard for me, as still a bit of an outsider in Canada, to understand the distinctions between what this was and sort of, because there is a lot of, Indigenous issues, awareness, education. That's are
we coming up soon on Orange Shirt Day?
We certainly are. We certainly are. Yes. And, I think these are important things for Canadians to know about. I don't think that this is like, let's check that from, I think that that is important. I don't feel like I have the context to say whether this particular event was more in the sense of raising awareness that these are still current issues. Like, it's hard to say, right? And I think the question is like, I mean, this came up, I remember, with Iraq war protests when I was in college, this idea that like certain professors would say, oh, you can miss class to go protest the Iraq war. And it did seem at the time like that was, could you skip class to do something the professor didn't want you to do?
Yeah, I think that's pointing out
and that was
some
also,
real serious concerns. Yeah.
So,
It's
but I mean, I
where-
think when it comes down to children, though, that's where I think I am a bit of a, maybe I'm just a bit of a, I am in favor of not bringing children to protests, even if it's a protest whose cause I think is a good one, because I don't think, what does it mean? Like, I think people will show, like, you will see pictures from protests that show the child, like, I don't mean like if you don't have childcare and you have brought your child, but I mean like, when you see children holding flags or banners, whatever, and it's like, it's always shown as like, look at the purity of the youth. They believe in this thing. It's like, no, somebody handed them a sign.
Yeah.
You
Look,
know?
as a parent, I don't know, I push back on that a little bit to sort of say like, hey, we get to instill values to our children, and this could be a way in which I would instill values. If I believed enough in a cause to go to it, I might believe enough to bring a kid and tell them, you see, this is what fighting for justice looks like. And this is the right thing that you should be doing when you grow up. The same way that I think, and other people strongly disagree, in instilling Jewish law and Jewish values and Jewish thoughts into my kids' minds, saying, let them think for themselves. I'm like, no, that's what you get to do as a parent, is you get to say, these are my values and I'd like you to learn them. And you can make your own decisions when you're an adult. But for a public school to do that, that's where I agree with you, and I push back and I say, no, it's not for a public school's role. It's for a parent's role to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know if I'm so far off from you actually now that you say it. Like, I think I would err on the side of not bringing kids to a protest, but I think it is up to parents at the end of the day, whereas I don't think public schools, I think public schools can just kind of be as non-committal as possible in some of this.
Well, if you had taken your daughter yesterday to an Indigo, you might have unwittingly brought her to a protest. And I don't know how much you would like that to have happened. And so maybe we should talk about that.
Please, can I have a question? I want to ask you a question, Avi.
Please.
If people are protesting Indigo, can I tell you what I would protest Indigo about if I had my druthers, if I were a
Crappy
protesting
housewares?
sort? Forget crappy. I don't know if they're good or not. I don't want housewares in my bookstore. I'm fine. I'm not a purist. I'm happy for there to be the coffee. I'm happy for there to be the facilities that come with coffee, like a toilet. I'm happy for there to be muffins sold. I am not happy for it to all be like throw pillows and mugs that say something corny, or not say, even if they're beautiful mugs. I would rather a bookstore be a bookstore.
I have thoughts on that.
Indigo is becoming less bookstore and more throw pillows. And I am there with my placard with my children. I feel like I want to say something about like a onesie that has a message, even though neither of my children are in a onesie. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah. So let's get the facts on this one.
Are people protesting about the throw pillows? Please tell me they are.
I wish. No. Indigo this week won a temporary injunction that upholds their copyright against a website that was promoting a certain boycott that was saying Indigo kills kids but using the logo of Indigo Kids and inserting the word kills into it. We don't know who the people who own the website are because they are John Doe's, but the injunction is there to prevent the ISPs, the internet providers, from those websites should be taken down, and that in and of itself is a complicated discussion about what's going on with that injunction, with the copyrights and all of that. But what that did is that it's serving to highlight the nature of these boycotts and what's going on with them. And it's related to the fact that Indigo's owner is Heather Reisman. She and her husband have a nonprofit in Israel called Heseg, and that organization provides scholarships to lone soldiers in Israel. Lone soldiers are people who move from a foreign land to Israel without family there to serve in the army. So they go, they become citizens, they're young, and they next day enlist in the army because they feel like it's the right thing to do. They refer to them as lone soldiers because they don't have family to go back to. And so the organization called Heseg provide scholarships to these students so that they can continue their education after they get out of the army. And the protesters are highlighting this and saying, well, if you are funding lone soldiers, you are funding people who kill kids. So when you buy a book at Indigo, you are killing kids. All of this to say that yesterday there was the proposed day of, protests and boycotts. Very little happened, except for the fact that people who really didn't necessarily need to go and buy a book. Maybe 50 people went and did a boycott and posted pictures of themselves on, various social media saying, look here, I'm supporting, this really multimillionaire Heather Reisman and going to buy a book at Indigo to show that I support Israel as well.
Two questions. One is, did they buy books or did they buy throw pillows? Because this is
I don't know. Okay. I saw people buying. I saw in the social media posts I saw was books. But
okay,
yes,
because I am in favor of people buying books. Generally, I buy books at Indigo. I buy books at the local bookstore that wants to do every Omnicause. I buy books. I'd buy them where they are sold, and I am in favor of people doing that. And if it's like, if spite or indignation or whatever gets you to buy a book, good. But what I would say, though, is I do want to push back on this idea that people are supporting a gazillionaire when they support Indigo, because I see it and I don't, okay? Yes, they are, but also that's not really the point. So this has kind of come up with a lot of these stories since October 7th of this is being done in the name of an boycott. It's okay. Let me rephrase this. It's being done as a boycott of Jewish businesses, Jewish coded businesses, Jewish owned businesses.
A boycott, you mean?
The boycott is being done to support Jewish businesses. And this is something I should just, as a side note, say that I had not once before October 7th ever heard of support Jewish businesses as like a thing. This is, it boggles the mind. This is not something that I had ever seen. I had seen support Black businesses, support queer businesses, support women-owned businesses. I had not ever seen Jewish-owned businesses. This was just like, it didn't register as like a category that
yeah, and I'll tell you, I get the
Jewish
sense
celebrities,
that within the Jewish community, there's definitely a quietly spoken or unspoken sort of like, yeah, you buy local. And when you say buy local, it kind of means also like buying Jewish. Like I had somebody once, I had a post office box in the US when I was living in Montreal because we had mail from the US being forwarded there. And I had somebody who I met somebody who had a a courier service basically picking up stuff for people in the US and bringing it back to Canada. And he was like, well, you should use my service. I was like, well, I do it myself anyways. He goes, well, don't you want to support a Jewish business? I was like, not at the expense of like my own thing if I can do it myself. But yes, there's definitely like, if you can buy two items and they're equal and one is at a non-Jewish business and one is at a Jewish business and you're Jewish and you say, hey, I want to keep the dollars local in the community, that does exist. And I would say that's there.
I'm sure it does exist, but it certainly did not exist with the scope it does now.
For sure.
And there wouldn't have been politicians treating a Jewish business as an entity in need of extra support. Sure. I think the thinking was not, all Jews are rich. I don't think that's true, and I don't think all Jews think this. But I think the thinking was just, this is not like a group of people whose businesses need an extra boost.
Yeah,
right?
and to be fair, though, the same can be applied to the boycott, right? The idea that the boycotts of these organizations, and it's not just Indigo, but it's any organization that has some tie to some multinational corporation that is supporting, Israel in some way or another, is not really designed to hurt them financially, but it's really designed to use it as a hook to raise awareness for whatever is going on within these corporations or within these organizations and their support of Israel. So it's not like they ever thought that boycotting Indigo is going to make that much of a difference from amongst their people or whatnot, because let's be honest, the throw pillows is actually a part of this story, because in my mind, Indigo is not really even like a bookstore. Indigo is a store that people that are mall shoppers who are not necessarily, I don't think of as like your typical hardcore pro-Palestinian, protester sort of individual, goes when they want to buy a book or maybe buy something for the home that they happen to be at the mall and they go for. Indigo is not a bookstore in my mind, and that's separate but related, I think. And I think that that's something that needs to be thought of and noted.
Well, it is a bookstore.
Yeah, but how many, like, if you're a hardcore book lover, you're an avid book reader, you're a person who, I'm pointing at all the books behind me right now, and they're actual books in my little book room here. You don't tend to shop at Indigo. You shop at your local bookstore that has the selection that can get you the book that you need. And you're not going out to a large book, because often Indigo doesn't have the book that you're looking for. It's there for like people that are browsing, that are looking for the popular stuff. I
have to push back on this, because I think it depends what you read. Like
I love Indigo for one thing that is book related, is that they have an excellent sales section.
Okay. I mean, I will say that because of the nature of my work, if I want to read a new book, there's a very good chance that I might be writing about it. I can get a galley of it. My case is a little specific. I think for people who do read a lot and read new books and are okay with paying full price or close for those books, they are shopping at Indigo. Obviously, I will say the reason for the throw pillows is to do with what sells, and obviously the throw pillows sell.
Yeah, I think that the 50% homewares that they have and all the other gift stuff and tech stuff is there because book sales are flagging, and these are higher ticket items. I mean, they have a higher markup and they're able to boost everything else. Even sale books. People don't realize this, but bookstores make more money. There's like a 90% markup on remaindered books and only a 40% markup on regular books. But we're straying from the larger discussion here. And it's only because we are both book lovers.
In Berlin, rumors are spreading.
Holocaust victims, their bodies are just dug up.
It's a shunda.
But the truth is even more unnerving.
Was your family in the Shoah?
Dude looks like he was in the Shoah.
As the world panics,
this is some ritual, bringing the dead back to life.
No, you said this wasn't illegal.
It isn't, I don't think.
one woman seeks the truth.
These are questions you can't answer.
And you're too afraid to even ask them.
Justice, a Holocaust zombie story. An original audio drama from the CJN in association with the Ashkenaz Foundation. Listen now at thecjn.ca/zombies or wherever you get your podcasts.
If you were to buy Ta-Nehisi Coates' new book, The Message, would you go to Indigo or would you go to your local pro-Palestinian but maybe Jewish-owned bookstore to get it?
I am just in such awe of your segue abilities that I am stunned and unable to process anything further. It is so extremely forbidden for journalists, writers, public intellectuals in this day and age in North America to share pro-Palestinian views that they are relegated to such sort of hidden zones as cover stories of New York Magazine if they want to share these views. These views are so hidden away from the mainstream that you are forced to something that obscure. Would you describe that as an obscure sort of setting?
Yeah, look, honestly, when I had heard that there was an article with an interview with him and about his new book, I couldn't find it because immediately I went right away to Guernica to look for it on their homepage, and I just couldn't find it. And I was like, it can't possibly get bigger than Guernica for pro-Palestinian writers. And then I didn't understand that it was the cover of New York Magazine. Yes.
So the cover story of New York Magazine is an interview with Ta-Nehisi Coates, and it's about Coates's new book. It's this big interview where basically Coates, who is known for having written The Case for Reparations, this kind of this was a kind of moment when the U.S. woke up and remembered that racism is a thing, which the U.S. periodically does. He made his name as this very prominent public intellectual, although he says he sort of didn't want to be. He was a big deal, is a big deal.
He's still a big deal.
No, is a big deal. That's what I'm saying. He has been for a while, but he was not part of the discourse for a while. He went sort of offline. He was very active, I remember, on social media. He and I were, I think, at one point Twitter mutuals, like in the long ago. He was like active online is what I'm saying. He was a kind of presence, and then he went and did other stuff. But then in the summer of 2023, so before October 7th, he went and saw the West Bank. He had his sudden realization that actually Israel is the most racist place ever, and that it's basically the Jim Crow South. And he studied then with Rashid Khalidi, talked to, whatever you want to call it. He educated himself to a point, and I want to talk about this, and has now come out with a book that's partly, not entirely, but this interview only focuses on this part of the book. It's about how the things you can't say, which is what I would like to talk with you about, Avi, which is it really true that you can't say the occupation of the West Bank is a bad look for Israel? And is that indeed what he's trying to say? Because that's another point I want to talk about.
I only read the interview itself. I haven't read the book. So I don't know what a lot of the main arguments that he's saying. But I think what you're saying is that you're trying to get at is that everybody is saying this stuff already. Look, there are protests on the streets. There are thousands and thousands of people talking about this on social media and in regular media as well. But he thinks that you cannot say this. To his somewhat defense, and I'm not sure that this might be the only place that I'm going to defend him on. He was in The Atlantic, and I'm sure Jeffrey Goldberg was saying that certain things shouldn't be said, within the pages of The Atlantic or other, major but right-wing coded media. And I don't think that's entirely true.
I have to jump in because there are a few things you said there. Okay, first of all, does Jeffrey Goldberg control the media, or does he control,
The Atlantic,
to a point, The Atlantic, which is one publication? So the stakes of this, best as I can tell, seem to be that Coates is having a sort of ideological split from a publication that he had been at, right? That is something that happens with public intellectuals all the time. It does not tell you that the media, because he has there's this part of the interview that just like, there are a few parts that I really want to highlight that are just kind of like blew my mind. But one is like where Coates kind of like allows that, yes, the New York Times did do this huge investigation of, the West Bank and the settlers and all of this, but nevertheless, you know what I mean? And it's like, no, I think it's fair to say that his ideological spot is different from the sort of, now every publication publishes different people and all of this, but yeah, he's probably to the left of the current Atlantic. Does that mean that the media won't happen? No. And Exhibit A, where are we reading this interview? Like, I cannot emphasize this enough. We are not reading this interview in an obscure journal. We are reading it as the cover story of a similarly prominent magazine that's just a bit to the left. And the New Republic regularly, like, that's way to the left of the New Republic used to be like what the Atlantic is now. And the New Republic is now maybe a bit more like, I don't want to say what the Atlantic was then, because that's, I think, further to the left even of that.
I think his statement is true. I think his statement is true when he started writing this book, which is years ago, and it's no longer true, especially after October 7th. You are 100% right. But come off of it, yes, you could say this wherever you're saying. You are not saying anything shocking. It's not like anything that he is saying is new or interesting. It's not like the case for reparations, which was this really minor, not quite academic, but not quite mainstream idea that he turned into a major idea that people are talking about still to this day. This is not like that at all. What he is saying is kind of mainstream ideas already for many, many people around the world. And, you know, like I said, when he started it, it may have been different. He may have been scooped by October 7th and everybody writing in the aftermath of that. But it's a little, so what I'm saying is a little bit of wishful thinking, but yeah, what he is saying is absolutely mainstream. When he talks about the fact that he is, a researcher and he is, caught up in his objective fact checking and looking and stuff like that, and he's willing to be criticized or open to critique by anybody. And then he openly admits that he only went and he was mentored by Rashid Khalidi and by other people on that side. That's the piece that really shocked me, where it was like, you claim to be on both sides. You claim to look about this stuff. In the same article, he talks about how, when he was looking at the idea of reparations, he started going to plantations. He was researching everything. And then he came to the conclusion that, no, it's really a simple thing. And in this case, did he go to examine everything? Did he speak to Gil Troy? Did he speak to other people on the right who are historians? No, it does not sound like that at all. And that's a huge mark against him. And then the other huge mark against him is where, if you ask me, he says very explicitly in one paragraph, for the beginning of the paragraph to the end, he says, I would not have been part of, Nat Turner's rebellion, which, if you're not really into Civil War or pre-Civil War slave history, this was a rebellion, one of the largest rebellions that happened by slaves, where they killed, I think, 55 white people before the rebellion was quashed or something like that. I had to look it up for more details on my own for this segment. And then he goes, I would not have been part of that. I would have said that is not right. And yet here I am. And I would say, if somebody blew a hole open in the wall going to Israel, and my sister was needing medicines and had been needing it for years and years, would I have gone and said, no, this is not right, we should not be going in, and doing this? I don't know if I would have said that. And I'm like, you're either somebody who recognizes that violence does not, solve things, or you are not. And he has elided this entirely. He thinks it's not complicated, when there are many, many smart people who would beg to differ. And while I am very sympathetic to a lot of the statements that are being said on the left, I'm not going to talk about into details here, there, or whatnot. Many smarter people than me say that it's complicated. So for Nehisi Coates to go and say it's not complicated,
okay, so this is where I have to jump in, because this is no, I yes to all of this. I know you don't like yes and, but I have to yes and. Sometimes it's warranted. Okay, I agreed with you. I just want to add, I want to pick up on this thing about the not complicated, because this has become kind of a line where it's complicated is supposed to mean that you actually think Israel makes all the right decisions, and it's not complicated is meant to mean that you don't think that. What I found so telling in this article was the whole "it's not complicated" followed up by the refusal, by Coates' complete and utter refusal to say what he thinks should happen. He's not there to give policy suggestions. He's just there to observe. No. Because what is complicated here is figuring out what to do. I mean, that's what's complicated. Yes, of course, there is an injustice here. There are two people who want the same land based on conflicting claims, right? There is objective injustice happening, for example, in the West Bank. There's this war now, right, which is not looking good and continually looking worse. Hostages, there are all sorts of angles of this that are individually quite simple. What's complicated is ending it, and how, and what's actually the just way to solve this. And to say it's simple, but then not say, and then what's simple to fix it, to me seems like dumb. I'm sorry. It's just dumb. It's like...
I'm going to make it even more explicit, right? Even if you believe that Israel is entirely wrong in what they're doing right now, even if you believe that, this is totally, totally, totally unjust, there is no right, even if that is, and I'm not saying that I believe that, even if one does that, the complicated part is to go and say, how do you undo a country? right? What do you do to a country that is already established? It's what's going on in Canada. It's why nobody is going and saying, right? We've talked about this many times in the past, the unceded land. We talk about the land acknowledgements. It's because you can't actually go and uproot the citizens who actually live here right now and say, this is all land. We're going to give all the land back. Nobody, that doesn't make sense.
It's neither moral nor practical. It is neither moral nor practical is what it is. Yeah.
And so to say that this is simple elides the fact that even if you are 100% right on the moral grounds, which I'm not conceding, but even if that is the case, it is still complicated because you cannot go and expel an entire country that happens to be living there.
Yes, and it's just so but the thing that got to me the most about this is going to require a little bit of like zooming out. Okay, ready for some outward zooming?
Let's zoom out.
The thing that I find most frustrating in conversations about, I want to say anything, but in particular the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, is when Americans, I say this as an American, assume that there's only one thing that could ever, one framework. But I want to talk about, so this is where it's going to be a little bit zoomed out. Are you familiar, I know you're not very online, but with the meme guy who's only seen one movie and it was Boss Baby, and then a quote from him?
No, I'm not.
This is really giving me Boss Baby vibes. Okay, if you've only seen one movie, everything's going to remind you of that one movie you've seen. And there's a certain type of person who's not very, perhaps, culturally... They're not watching a lot of movies. Maybe they're not reading a lot of books. They've read the one thing, they've seen the one movie, and they're just, everything reminds them of that. There's something in the US where the thing people know about is black-white relations, anti-black racism, slavery in the United States, Jim Crow. That is the thing that people are aware of in the United States, okay? And then when Americans try to process the world, it's like, so who are the black people and who are the white people? And let's just transpose everything onto some other situation, and we have figured it all out, problem solved. One of my big frustrations with the way this conflict gets discussed, especially one might say by the TikTok generation or whatever, is like this oversimplification and seeing everything through the lens of America. Here we have the great intellectual is weighing in on this complicated topic, and what is he doing? Exactly that. He's legitimizing that way of looking at it, and he's just doing it. He's saying, oh yeah, it's just like in the US. And it's like, no, it really is not just like the US. And I am worried. When I saw this, I thought, okay, people are going to love it. People are going to love it because you don't really have to think. You've already done the reading. You did it in school if you're American. And you just say, oh, okay, this is like the thing I already know about.
Yeah, so I believe the cognitive bias you're thinking about is the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, where you know one thing and you tend to see it everywhere. And you're saying that we cannot... I used to see this with professors all the time, and you know all the professors that I'm talking about, and I'm sure our listeners can think of one professor or one thinker that takes their one big idea and applies it to every possible thing. And what you're pointing out, which I think is very fair and very important for people to notice, is that the differences are much greater between the, slavery and the Civil War and this, that era and what's going on in Israel. And you cannot create the connection to say these were oppressed peoples, those were oppressed peoples, everything is the same.
What I'm objecting to here is that Coates is person number 10 zillion and 2 to decide that the most important thing in the world, and he apparently decided this before October 7th, so for better or worse, and I think largely for worse, that there's only one thing that matters, and it's the Jewish state and its misdeeds, and that the rest of the world, and apparently, so this is where I'm a little bit hazy because this is about an interview and not a book, and it could be that maybe the interviewer should have talked about more of the book, which was also about Senegal, which is, not Israel. But there is just this thing where, like, treating, however horrible you find Israel, not you, Avi, but however horrible somebody finds Israel, to treat it as the source of everything bad in the world is a bit much.
This is the omnicause.
Well, no, this is anti-Semitism. This is just...
Yeah, this is the anti-Semitism of the omnicause. And this is the issue of the omnicause, is that not everything collapses into one big thing.
Right, well, into that specific big thing. And I think when I saw this, that he had this epiphany that actually it's all about Palestine. It's like, yeah, you and all the other anti-Semites. I'm sorry. Like, that is when I see that, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's fine to take that on as a topic. But this obsession, yeah, and I understand that it's always sort of framed as, well, the U.S. is supporting Israel. So it's my tax dollars. And like, I think there's only so much that can be said about that. That certainly does not explain the global fascination with this. Anyway.
He can't be a total anti-Semite because he's clearly friends with Peter Boehnert.
I don't think he is an anti-Semite. I'm saying that I think that is an anti-Semitic thing in society to treat this as the only thing going on. And
Gotcha.
I don't think that you can, especially now, and this is why I said that it's like maybe almost a little bit more damning that it started before October 7th, because I think if it's the only thing you're seeing in the news, then what are you going to think? What are you going to think about? Whose suffering is at the forefront of your mind? And I think this is where I find myself a little skeptical of the claim that journalists, thinkers are disregarded if they mention Palestinian suffering, because I'm not in the Middle East. How do I know so much about this? Clearly, people are writing about it a lot, and it's getting published, and not only in obscure places.
Let us move on to Nachas or Brueges. Do you got something for me, Phoebe, this week? What do you got?
I have a ridiculous Brueges, and I have blogged about it on my personal blog, but I'm going to bring it to some Canadian Jewish news sorts as well, because it's not Jewish related, but it is local, hyper local. So, but I'm going to have to ask you a question. Do you ever go to farmers markets?
On occasion. It's harder in my neighborhood because the farmers market is on Saturdays. I'd have to go to like the other neighborhoods farmers markets. They are fun. They're nice. I used to be part of a CSA for years, so that something there.
That's your cred. Okay,
I have something there. Yeah. I did Lufa Farms, which is the food delivery from the farmers markets in Montreal for a while when we were still in Montreal. But yeah.
Okay.
Farmers markets.
So farmers markets. The one near me is on Mondays, and I should say I have seen ultra-Orthodox looking women shopping at it once, I was a little surprised, just because there aren't a whole bunch.
Did you ask her if she was Catholic?
I did. Yeah. But there are like identifiably Jewish stalls and singers sometimes, because there's the farmers market always has to have the folk music or whatever, and sometimes it's kind of klezmer. But anyway, none of this has a Jewish angle. I'm forcing a Jewish angle into something that has no Jewish angle at all, which is that the farmers market near me has decided, I guess, to not do produce bags. You know, like not the big plastic shopping bag, because those have been banned in Toronto, maybe in all of Canada for all I know, but certainly in Toronto, you can't have a plastic shopping bag anymore. Yeah. Okay.
Well, you can have one. You just can't provide one to a customer.
Right. It's not like you have to go to a special, like... black market dealer. No, but, or maybe you do. But the point is, produce bags continue. They live on. They exist in supermarkets. They used to be at the farmer's market. But what I've noticed recently is that either the stands don't have them, or they have them like behind the table and you have to ask, and it's very awkward, and they try to like not give you any, and if you ask, they'll very grudgingly give you like one to put in a variety of herbs and carrots and things that don't go together into one plastic produce bag. Now, I had never really thought so much about my own dependency on plastic produce bags, but apparently it's pretty great, because if I don't keep things in these, they go off. Like, I forget that I've bought them. If I put stuff in the paper bag, which they sometimes provide, like a brown paper bag, I put eggplants in a brown paper bag and put it in the vegetable bin, and I forgot I had them, and I never used them because I didn't know they were there.
You don't have object permanence?
For every single vegetable? No. And this is what people have. Yeah. No, but if somebody has brought this up with me. But like, the point is it actually, like, yes, I get that you're supposed to reduce your use of single-use plastics, but sometimes they are, useful. And there is a use that cannot be replicated in some other way. And whenever I've like posted about this, asked people about it, it's always like, oh, there are all these other ways you can avoid using them. It's like, yeah, but like, is it actually better for the environment for your food to go off / to get a more durable nylon bag?
I don't use the little clear plastic produce bags at all. No, I go to the store and I'll put like 8 peaches right into my shopping basket, and then 6 plums and 4 eggplants, and I'll put it all in. It all goes into one big bag on its way home, and then I just sort it all into the like, I don't know,
into the fridge?
Into the fridge, yeah.
Does your fridge have a lot of compartments or something?
I have compartments. I don't know. I don't have a lot, but
Okay, so we have established that my Broigus is a me thing, and that...
But that's okay. You're allowed to be Broigus about something.
But it's just like, it all feels very much like I can hear the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme song playing in my head when I'm asking, can I have another produce bag for those carrots? And the guy's like, I guess. And I'm like, Anyway, so yeah, that's my Broigus. It's not really a Broigus. It's just I take it back. It is completely a Broigus. It's just a complete nonsense Broigus. Avi, what have you got?
Despite it having been released mere hours ago from when we have been recording right now, I'm already 2 episodes into Nobody Wants This. I feel like we are going to have to do like multiple episodes about this TV series that's on Netflix. It's very typical rom-com, except that she's a shiksa. I'm only saying that because that's the term they use on the show, and he is a rabbi.
Oh, the rabbi show. I was going to say, what is it? It's the rabbi. You're watching the rabbi show.
Like I said, I've watched a couple episodes. It's on Netflix.
Okay, I don't have Netflix.
We very well may have to do a lot of talking about this further. There were moments that are, 100% the writers know what they're talking about and know what they're dealing with. And there were moments where I was like, I don't think an assistant rabbi, like the junior rabbi in the congregation, can afford an Eames lounger in his living room and a signed Magic Johnson jersey that's framed. But it's so far this talking, and it's about a podcast. That's the more unbelievable thing is that the female love interest and her sister have a podcast that is going to be bought for millions of dollars by Spotify. And I'm like, that's the not believable part. Right.
Okay. So that is amazing. And that's making me think of how when I last watched contemporary TV, I was on an airplane and was watching the 2021 show, the Sex and the City, and just like that, where Carrie Bradshaw is now a podcaster. Yeah. So I think that's probably we are in a glamorous profession.
Absolutely.
Apparently.
Well, I mean, apparently as a rabbi, I'm glamorous. And apparently, I know that it is 100% true what happens to him, which is people like assume you're this hot guy that can't possibly be a rabbi. And then people ask you random questions about Jewish values at dinner parties. This happens absolutely true all the time. That and the fact that everybody thinks you're incredibly attractive and not at all a rabbi.
So can I ask a question, though, about this show? Because I have been wondering. Does it just feel extremely dated? Because I feel like this whole concept of this
huge. We'll save this for an entire discussion.
But can I just have like a quick question about it? And it used to be that you could have like a Woody Allen movie or a Philip Roth novel where there were 2 ways of being: white and non-Jewish, and Jewish and pale-skinned and somewhat white presenting, but also Jewish presenting. In our diverse society today, not that society wasn't diverse in the past, but in entertainment, in its more diverse contemporary landscape, to have the shiksa as like some blonde, non-Jewish woman seems like a very passé concept. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think it's being used as a plot device here, meaning those women
it's always
exist.
It's always been used as a plot device, but I'm saying it seems like one from an era. It just does it have any relevance in today's world, the shiksa?
I think it does. Given LA and where this is set is filled with women like this. Not that it's exclusively filled with women like this, but yes, there are many women that are like this in LA, and that it would be very typical for somebody to find somebody like that. The part that I found very passé and very dated was all of the whiny, annoying Jewish tropes are being carried by the women in the show so far. Again, I'm only a couple episodes in, but that was something that I found like, we have to get that Larry David energy in there, but it's being carried by the women. Anyways, before we go, I do want to have a quick scheduling note. Because of all of the high holidays, Rosh Hashanah is coming up, Yom Kippur is coming up, Sukkot is coming up, and most of those have a Thursday, Friday, Shabbat schedule this year. Our release schedule is going to be a little bit erratic. We are going to be doing the best that we can to get get great content to you for your, Rosh Hashanah cooking and Yom Kippur pre-fast, break-fast prepping and Sukkot building and all of that stuff that's going to be in your ears for this high holiday season. We're going to try to get to you as much as we can and in as timely fashion as we can, but stuff might come a couple of days late because of the holidays. We might miss an episode because of the holidays, but stay tuned. There will be more Bonjour Chai over the next few weeks, but not entirely every Thursday evening as you are normally used to seeing it. Thank you for listening to Bonjour Chai for the week ending September 28th, Shabbat Parashat Nitzavim. The show is produced by Michael Fraiman and edited by Zach Kauffman. The executive producer for CJN Podcasts is Michael Fraiman. Our music is by So-Called. We are a project of the Jewish Living Lab and are distributed by the CJN Podcast Network. You can listen to all our past episodes on our page at thecjn.ca/bonjour, and you can subscribe to the podcast and automatically receive all episodes on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We would love it if you told a friend about Bonjour Chai. It is one of the best ways we get new listeners. And as always, please email us comments, questions, ideas at bonjour@thecjn.ca. I'm Avi Feingold.
And I'm Phoebe Maltz-Bovey.